Hey everybody, welcome to Boldly Trekking, episode 3, Tres. Uno, dos, tres. Yeah, I had to count up there. I'm not so good with my Spanish. Um, w- we are back. We had a week off because we once a month we get together with our local Star Trek fan club and we visit with them. That fan club is the USS Jeanette Maddox that meets every second Saturday of the month at the Burrow here in Wichita, Kansas. But hopefully here soon. Sean here is going to be launching his own ship. It's a relaunching of the USS Beowulf, and
Mhm.
then he will have his own group, and that'll be superific and cool. But that being said, how you doing, Sean?
I'm doing pretty good. I've had a great week.
Good.
Recovered from my birthday, so it's all good.
Oh,
Um,
my birthday's coming up. I'm getting
no.
old. I think we're both the same age, aren't we?
Well, let's put it this way. I can recall the space shuttle being flown around on the back of a 747.
I as well. I as well. As a matter of fact, we were still over in Germany at the time, so I saw that in Baumholder Elementary School is where I saw that one at. Yeah, yeah, long time ago. Uh,
Little piece of trivia for all the Star Trek fans out there, by the way. If Star Trek fans hadn't done a letter writing campaign and wanted the space shuttle to be renamed Enterprise, it would have been named Constitution, and the first space shuttle it would have launched would not have been Columbia, it would have been Enterprise. So it would have been a Constitution class space shuttle Enterprise. But we
so they messed
wrote
that
our
up?
program. Yeah, we messed that up.
Man, that's like I saw this one. I mean, just on things that are messed up. This one, well, apparently, um, it's the Civil War. So this is not Star Trek related. This is just messed up related because I love fun trivia. Apparently, the place where the first battle of the Civil War was fought. I think what the name of it was, but the guy who owned that property, he saw everything that was coming up, and he's like, "Screw it, I got to get my family out of here." So he moved his family 120 miles south, all right, to get away from where all the fighting was going to be. And then years later, when the South was surrendering, um, they went to they were looking for a place to go sign the uh, all the documentation that it was over with, sign the surrender. And they looked around and found this great house and took it over for the signing. It was the house that the guy bought. And so the Civil War started on his property and ended on his property. So that was a fun little fact.
Yeah, life is like that.
What was Stephen Wright's line? It's a small world, but I wouldn't want to have to paint it. Um,
Fair, fair.
Very good. All right, so today we cussed and discussed, and Sean threw a couple possible subjects at me, and I threw them all in a hat and pulled it out and decided I would like to talk about enlisted personnel, crewmen, and civilians, and possibly civilians in Star Trek if we get time for it. But
Mhm.
I wanted to talk about how, as someone who was in the military myself and was enlisted, even though I enjoy Star Trek immensely, it irritates the crap out of me the complete underrepresentation of enlisted personnel in Starfleet. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, they're just completely not even and the thing is they should be 70 to 80% of the crew should be enlisted personnel. Otherwise, you're just top heavy like nobody's business. But they don't show that. Yeah,
Perhaps they do, but you just don't know.
they
Um,
don't show it. Granted, it's could be along the lines of that the off when they were writing the stuff, they consider the officers are the ones that will push the plot forward. But anybody who's ever watched stuff like Kelly's Heroes or anything like that, you realize that it truly is the enlisted and the E4 mafia that gets stuff done. Um,
True, true. It's mostly all the grunts who supply all the cannon fodder and get
well,
all the
it's
nasty stuff done
well,
behind the scenes.
it's not even that. It's one of the, and this has been historically accurate. One of the true um, underappreciated uh, power moves of the U.S. military is that we are not um, so reliant on the officers to tell people what to do. The senior NCOs and NCOs have the power in the U.S. military that junior officers have in some other countries. And that's the reason that if something happens to the butter bar lieutenant or somebody like that, um, the units can still function and still get the job done, all the way down to just a PFC or a lance corporal or a corporal taking charge and getting stuff done, because they have been instilled with the ability and the mindset that they can go ahead and finish the mission and get things done. Whereas in some other militaries, they don't do that. It's always, you have to do exactly what the officer says. You can't make a movement without the officer telling you what you can do and what you can't do.
Mhm.
And that really makes them top heavy and unwieldy when anything happens to the chain of command structure.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah. So,
So
boots, we're not just targets. We get shit done.
that's true. So let's go ahead and start off with the original series because
Oh yeah.
that's the elephant in the room because it's Gene Roddenberry's seminal piece that
Hmm.
started it all, but also is where the issue you discussed really came from was Gene Roddenberry. Gene Roddenberry believed that all the enlisted or all the people on the starship were officer class or better, essentially starting from ensign grade or better, and essentially,
Well,
go ahead.
he had some yeomen in there,
Well,
and
that's the point I was going to make,
yeah,
actually.
go ahead. Yeah, but the yeomen,
Um,
when that, I mean, for a while there, I was like, okay, are these yeomen just bed warmers? Because that's kind of what it feels like. She kind of feels like a bed warmer there. I'm glad they got away from that.
yeah. Well, here's the thing. So he basically stipulates that all the crewmen are ensign or better, and they're trained as at least astronaut level. But then keep in mind, this is in the '60s, so we had this whole mindset of you have to be to be a NASA astronaut, you have to be an officer or better, and
Okay.
the whole mindset came from that. But the thing was that when you watch the cage, and if you bring up the photo of the guy stretching across the console,
Hold on a
um,
second. Your script. No, hold on, not script. Share. Haha. um, I was gonna go for. Okay, hold on.
well, that's
Him.
him right there. So this little gentleman right here, he's I guess you would say the communications officer is. He's manning the communication console, I guess, because he intercepts the radio signal that's coming from Talos 4 from the
Hmm.
Starship Columbia. And this gentleman is a crewman of some sort or CPO. Um, he's actually the first one in the series. If you go to
And
the next
for
photo,
those for those who don't know, CPO's Chief Petty Officer.
thank you. I should not be using jargon without explaining it. But that is his rank braid. It's essentially uh, hard to describe, but basically it looks like what somebody did is they cut the rank braid that Pike and company wear into like little sections and then put like a former around the line, so it essentially does still have the consistency of a complete stripe,
And
but it's broken up.
and that's
So
one thing that always threw me for a loop is because in the military, those are your stripes for time and service in the Marine Corps.
mhm,
And
right,
so I always looked at that as, okay, he's got 5 years, it's good. Um, but let me see here.
and
You
then
had his
yeah,
the rank set up here.
Yeah, this is from Star Trek II. Robert Fletcher notes on rank and ratings insignia. This is ratings, of course, because enlisted personnel don't have ranks per se. They have ratings, as they're called, at least normally. So these insignia would have been seen on the shoulder epaulette that you would have seen on personnel walking around on the Enterprise in Star Trek II. Most of the people who were enlisted personnel in Star Trek II had the white yoke across the top of their chest, with the rest of it being the monster maroon color. So when you see people like that, most of the time in Star Trek II, they are enlisted personnel. In fact, actually, there's a element to the original series that you mentioned, which was that yeoman was a common term for anybody who was a crewman who was serving in Starfleet. They don't really give a rank other than that. They just call them a yeoman.
Hmm.
Um, and on Memory Alpha, if you go to the site, one of
Oh,
the things it talks about is that there's a huge number of enlisted personnel that would essentially be yeomen and crewmen in the original series. Like J.M. Colt, who was Pike's yeoman in the cage, is considered a enlisted person.
yeah,
And then if you go back a couple of slides to this gentleman here, he is Crewman Green. He's from the very first episode of Star Trek that ever got aired, called The Man Trap. This poor gentleman got killed by a salt vampire,
yeah,
and was one of the first red shirts. Oddly enough, he's not wearing red, but he is one of the first red shirts that bites it. And he is definitely not a officer in the traditional sense. Um, but if you notice, he also doesn't have any insignia on his uh, on his sleeve. He doesn't have any rank insignia or rating insignia, as the
right.
case may be.
Uh, and that's one thing also as well, because we all know the most famous NCO in Star Trek is Chief O'Brien.
Hmm.
All right, but in a couple of the episodes, they actually had him wearing ensign's uh,
Yeah, the hollow
rank,
cup.
yeah, instead of something that was enlisted. So that was something that was was messed up as well. It was the fact that they didn't have a concrete rank structure to put on his lapel to begin with.
Well, the other thing is that with Gene Roddenberry, it's a question of, you know, intent versus what is done. So you can actually have somebody write something and speak it, as dialogue, but then you fail to deliver it in terms of what you have for your props or,
Oh
whatever you
yeah.
have going on. So the thing with O'Brien is he has the hollow pip, and then it goes to two solids, and then it eventually goes to three, and then it changes to a device in Deep Space Nine, which looks a lot like a uh, you know uh, enlisted personnel ratings patch.
Hmm.
Um, and so the thing is that you you verbally you hear, oh well, he's a chief petty officer, but you have the wrong device going on. So it's also like a funny one is like Spock. Actually, he gets called commander, and his rank grade is wrong for his rank in the original series in several episodes, and he's like, wait, what did we not did Spock not be able to afford the rank grade?
Well,
To
well,
go with.
you also have to remember that it wasn't until several years after it was first airing that that the creatures that are us were born into existence. The Star Trek nitpickers,
Yes.
and yeah, because back then they were lucky just to get it on. If it wasn't for the Grand Queen Lucille Ball greenlighting it for them, this never would have happened.
Yeah.
And so they were just lucky to get stuff on something to paper, then something to screen. I mean, there's a reason for the longest time they only had one ship shown, all right,
Right.
and one enemy ship shown. Oh, which by the way, I just need to put the put the decals on, and this bad boy is all done, and we'll be able to put it on the table at the next convention we're going to be at.
If you want to switch from your sharing to like being able to show
Oh,
your picture, because we can't see what you're talking
you
about right
can't
at the
see
moment.
it? Damn it.
Yeah,
Okay, hold on.
there
There
we
she
go.
is.
Yep,
Yep. Good
she's
coloring,
beautiful.
nice paint job. Took care of all those horrible seams on this 1970s, 1960s model kit. It's it was a lot of sanding and puttying going on there. That was
Oh yeah.
brutal. It was brutal. Uh, two different kinds of putty. It was monster. Um, no, but yeah, that's another thing for anybody who wants to come and visit us. We're going to be at Kansas Con in March, and we're going to have a table there, so you can come out and visit us there, and get any kind of recruitment that you want to do in order to join the USS Beowulf. That's all I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
Mhm.
All right.
Fair enough.
uh, okay, so let me see. What my notes here: lack of representation. Star Trek focuses heavily on officers. The only major enlisted character was Chief O'Brien, the only major one.
Mhm.
Um, doo-doo-doo. See, yeah, it should have been 70 to 80% of the crew should have been enlisted. So that on the Galaxy class, that should have been 700 to 800 individuals there should have been enlisted.
Mhm. And
Um,
actually, the guy who's in the like photos that I showed you from the Star
yeah,
Trek Next Generation uniform
Green.
is Romulan looking or Vulcan looking. He's wearing a blue Sciences uniform.
Hold
His name
on.
is
Screen. All right, let me go through here.
this gentleman right here. His
I
name is
remember him.
Crewman.
That was in the drumhead, right?
Yep. His name
Did,
is Crewman First Class Simon Tarsus. His grandfather was a Romulan, so oops.
yeah,
Um,
they gave him that little bit of turn up on his ear there.
yeah, just
Um,
a touch.
yeah,
Um,
just a touch.
but he was actually, other than O'Brien, he was like the other major enlisted person listed in Star Trek Next Generation.
Exactly.
So, and then there was another gentleman I was going to show you, which is actually the thing was that for the longest time they didn't want to have warrant officers in Star Trek. So if you go back, yep, this gentleman here is Warp Specialist Kaczynski.
Yep.
And you'll notice he's wearing a different set of collar pips than what everybody else normally wears. This gentleman came aboard the Enterprise in where no one has gone before, where they
Mm-hmm.
introduced the Traveler, and essentially he uh, has an ego, to put it bluntly. And
He's a warrant officer. All
yeah, he's
right.
a warrant officer. Yeah, he's a warrant officer.
My dad was a warrant officer, chief warrant officer, third class.
Yeah,
They tend to get a
so
bit of an ego.
yeah, they're kind of rare. They're not. You don't see a lot of them.
Yeah,
Um,
I remember, I forget why, I was a kid. I forget why I was at the motor pool, showed up that day to see my dad or something like that, and heard him. I had to wait outside because there was a captain in my dad's office, my dad's motor pool, and just being able to hear through the walls my dad yelling at this captain to, get the F out of his motor pool until he gets his F in head out of his F and A. Yeah, it was. And you know what? That captain scurried the hell out of there like some kind of chastised little freshman. It was funny. And that's the reason to this day I'm like, I really have no fear of anybody under the rank of colonel. I don't care.
fair enough. Fair enough.
What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do to
Yeah,
me?
bust me down. Come on.
Yeah.
Um,
What it was
so
it Chesty Puller said that a Marine is not a Marine unless he has a couple page 11s in his jacket. So
yeah, there's the majority of Starfleet. I would say I would agree with you. They don't have enough representation of enlisted, or at least verbal acknowledged representation. Whether they're actually there or not is another good question, because you don't know until you actually have them say something sometimes, in a lot of cases.
See, that's one of my issues. I mean, I really love Lower Decks. I think it's a great show.
Yeah.
But one of my problems with Lower Decks is the way that they have the ensigns behaving is not the way that you would have, you know, a normal ensign or lieutenant or something like that behaving. They're behaving more like the guys I hung around with, down, E3 and below, before you got to NCO. Yeah, that was it. It's just they have taken what should be, the enlisted, mindset and temperament and everything, and chucked that down to the ensign, where most ensigns and lieutenants, they behave much differently than that. And they are automatically, as soon as they get there, they're automatically, the head of teams. They are not, the lowly guy who's cleaning out the freaking, the waste chute in the holodeck. No, it's so sticking. Why does it smell like mushrooms? No, it's not that guy. All right, that guy is, E1 who's pissed off the sergeant. That's who's cleaning that crap out.
Oh yeah. Well, it's kind of funny you mentioned that, because the thing that you see in Star Trek VI, it's Ensign Burke and Samno, or crewman Burke and Samno, are the two gentlemen who board the Klingon vessel. I said ensign, but they're actually crewmen. And they end up, killing effectively several of the Klingon crew, and injuring the Chancellor fatally, giving him a fatal wound. Essentially, they end up being the characters that are pivotal to them uncovering Valoris's duplicity, her treachery. But they are the ones who do all the grunt work. They are the ones who go on board the ship and kill all the people on the Klingon vessel, and they are the ones who are responsible for essentially instituting the plan to go ahead and get it started effectively.
See, but I see that more personally in my head canon. I don't see them doing that because they are enlisted. I see them more like back in the the Shogun era of Japan. Ninjas didn't walk around all the time wearing their black pajamas. They, it was the guy with the water buffalo on the end of the string out in the rice paddy. All right, you wouldn't have suspected him for anything. That's the bad guy. And I think in my head canon, that's what went on here, is that they were recruited into this for whatever reason, but the simple fact that they were, in disguise as lowly enlisted allowed them to slip under the radar, because, like what was the old saying? No one pays attention to the staff, to the servants, and that's always like been the downfall of aristocracy, is because they treat the servants like furniture, and then don't realize that the servants see everything and hear everything and know everything. And that's
true.
In my head canon, they were bad guys hiding in with the enlisted, and Section 31, screw them. I hated the movie.
Well, tell me how you really feel.
Oh God, man, it's like an hour and a half of my life I'll never get back.
The director's cut, in my opinion, is a lot better than the theatrical cut, because they added a lot
Section 31.
No. Star Trek 6. I thought you were talking about Star Trek 6. I was like, wow, you have some strong feelings about Star Trek 6.
Star Trek 6 is good. It's what was that? What was that line that so rings true? We don't talk about the odd number movies.
Yeah.
Uh, and Star Trek
So
Six,
is Section 31 an odd number movie, or is it like
it's
outside
double
of
odd. It's double odd, and we really don't talk about it.
This reminds me of a Disney film. We don't talk about Bruno.
We don't talk about Fight Club.
Well, there's a song from one of the more recent Disney films. We don't talk about Bruno.
Oh, was it? I haven't seen that one. It's in Encanto. I don't remember the name of the movie.
Encanto.
Encanto. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I hear it's
So
really
it's
good. I
actually a lot of
just
fun. Yeah.
haven't taken the time yet. I mean, I pay for Disney Plus. I should watch the damn thing.
And, we could do like a whole enlisted skit where we don't talk about enlisted. Well,
Did
I
you
think
hear something? I heard nothing.
the thing I think actually kind of resonates, you can take it the way you did, or I kind of look at it this way, is that even if the crewmen were actual crewmen, right,
Yeah.
and they screwed it completely up, that worked for them for a Section 31 plan
Oh yeah.
because they're dressed in a Starfleet uniform with gravity boots, and they're armed with phasers. They're obviously not Klingons. So they beamed aboard and shot somebody. Even if they'd been killed like the first 10 feet out of the transporter room, it
Oh
still
yeah.
would have worked for the Klingons because they would have been, we've got the evidence. We got these two men who came aboard our
Everything.
vessel. Right.
Everything we need right there. Yeah.
Yeah. And that they killed the, support staff, the chief of staff, the people around or at least the people around the chancellor, and then injured him grievously. That was all what they were looking for. But seriously, I do think that for Starfleet, I think the crewmen who serve on like the high muckety muck ships, like the Constitution class and you know Galaxy class starships, are like the cream of the crop of the enlisted personnel. Um,
Hmm.
and I think they're probably going to be the most capable enlisted personnel that you're going to encounter in Starfleet.
Oh yeah.
I do think that Lower Decks does have a severe problem with displaying the ensigns like they're enlisted personnel, but it's more for flavor and more for fun. I
Oh
don't think they're
yeah.
too concerned about the effect it would have on actual Starfleet if this was how they treat their ensigns.
Oh
But
yeah. No, yeah, my time in as an enlisted and a young guy, it was just a whole lot of it was a whole lot of mayhem. There was a lot of it's not really theft if the materials are still owned by the Marine Corps. They were just we called it relocating of of necessary materials. Um, oh, we got somebody in the chat. Let's see here. Hey, Roberto, how you doing? Did they use the One Ring to strengthen their battle cruisers? I do not understand that.
he's making a Lord of the Rings analogy. The One Ring, the
Ah,
Sauron.
okay. Uh,
He's referring to your lovely D7 battle cruiser that you showed earlier.
I could be. It's so pretty. I have um, in my pile of stuff to get to. I have a 1/350 scale Katenga, and so that one's going to be interesting. I'm going to do a full paint masking on that one. That'll take a good long while. But the next one I'm going to do. Ah, let go. Oh, there's going to be a loud crash, but don't worry, nothing's breakable. Um,
Nice.
is Enterprise C, and I've got some really great aftermarket dimples for this one, so it's going to be fun. But that's going to be my next one.
Sweet.
Yeah, yeah, I got
So
shelves of the stuff.
so so the other thing is that with the enlisted personnel, you get a lot of scenes in the show. Like if you go back to the clips, and these are all from most of them are from TrekCore. The photos I sent you. The one of the gentleman who's in the blue coveralls from the original series, his scene right there, he's crewman Fisher, and he falls off. He's a klutz. He falls off of a cliff and gets covered in magnetic ore, which happens
Uh-huh.
to cause a transporter accident, which is one of the reasons why we get some of the great scenes of Shatner's overacting. Give me the brandy. Um, and
I'm
you
sorry,
know,
that entire episode, I just couldn't get over that damn dog. Uh,
that poor dog.
I know.
If you if you're watching this podcast and you see the poor little doggy, that actually is a dog with some like plantons. He has a little horn going out of
This
his head,
and he
and his,
didn't even have the common courtesy to have the horn directly in the middle. It's just like off to one side. I think it's on the left-hand side of the poor pooch. And the look
I
on its
think that's the best
face,
they could do.
yeah,
I
the
think
look
that's
on the
the best they
dog's
could do.
face is just like, oh God, why me? I mean, you could really tell that it was sitting there thinking about, if I'm just a good boy, maybe karma will let me be reincarnated with something with some more dignity next time.
I think the scene in the transporter room where it shows the alien dog being vicious, I think that was after it had been dealing with its outfit all day, and they were like, "We'll just adjust it some more. It'll be fine. Come on." It's like, "Rawr, go
Yeah,
tear you a limb."
I'd rather be fixed again.
So they just did live action with that because they're like,
Yeah,
"Hey, this is perfect. He's vicious. He's rabid. He's going to rip James Doohan's arm off. Go for it.
perfect.
Action."
Yeah, we're already burning cellulite. Celluloid. Go for it.
So poor dog. But yeah, crewman Fisher basically falls off the side of the cliff, and he's acknowledged as not being an officer. And if you look at a lot of the people in the original Star Trek series, they're wearing this thing that's very reminiscent of a sailor's outfit, or at least enlisted personnel sailor outfit. It's almost like a gi, almost, if I'm pronouncing that right.
Yeah, it's a
But
gi.
it's black undershirt. If you're in the production series, it's white or off-white in the cage. But regardless, division color, no rank insignia, and the color. That's it. You don't get any. You don't even get a. I don't even get an insignia. I don't even get any rank braid. I'm just here. That's kind of how it goes. And so you got all these guys running around in the background. You don't know anything about them. They're
Yeah.
they're space fillers, basically.
Yes. That's a double entendre.
Uh-huh.
There's space fillers in space. Uh, um, Roberto said, "Can't wait to see Twilight vampires in Star Trek. What it always needed." Oh my goodness. I don't know. I saw some recent photos from the new Starfleet Academy,
Mhm.
and I got to remember some things aren't made for me. All right,
Mhm.
and they're trying to get in the young kids, and
Mhm.
so it's not meant for me. I am not their target audience.
Are you
And
saying you don't want to have a varsity jacket? Is that what you're trying
oh
to tell me?
God, no. Oh hell no. I saw that when they posted up the pictures, people were like, "Oh, where do I get the varsity jacket?" I'm like, I don't care. Uh, but I think I've already seen like copies of that varsity jacket styling on AliExpress
I'm sure.
because
I mean,
yeah, when I go on
as
there
soon
to
as they get
order
a
like my
photo, they reverse engineer it so they can
oh
try and sell it.
everything,
Yeah.
everything. But
Even if it's a bad photo, they'll be like, "Hey, we'll knock it out."
definitely. Um, but anyways, yeah. So it'll be interesting. I will be happy that there's more stuff in the Star Trek universe coming out.
I do.
It yeah.
Go ahead.
I was
I
gonna
was
say
gonna say.
it may not be for me, but I'm
Mhm.
glad that it's there.
So this leads to a point I really want to ask, because this is about, involves enlisted personnel to some degree or another, but showing things in the way they have over the years, right? From going from Star Trek, the original series, to where we are now with Strange New Worlds and whatnot. And Strange New Worlds has its own, like odd little duck things, like the rank braid being the same color as the uniforms and that kind of thing is kind of okay. It would not fly. It would not go over with regular military.
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. I mean, if you look at the difference between, like in my time, BDUs, all right,
Mm-hmm.
and normal everyday Class A's, all right, or Class C's. When if you're wearing stuff that you wear out in the field, the rank is subdued because I mean, and the concept for that is that a nice shiny officer's rank emblem will catch the sniper's eye because it will flash some
Mm-hmm.
light, and you're more likely to be taken down. So you want the rank to be subdued
Mm-hmm.
because you don't want people in the distance to know who's who and who to take out. So they take out the
Agreed.
snake's head. Yeah.
Yeah, agreed. It's just that on board ship, generally you want to be able to see who or what the other person is. Like if somebody's walking up to you, you want to be able to identify who they are, what their rank is, and that kind of thing.
And I agree. I agree. But also conversely, on a ship, you already know who everybody is. All right. You
Good
you
point.
know you know who the captain is. You know who the XO is. You know who
Well,
your
you better
team
know.
lead is. Yeah, you better know. You're gonna find out really fucking quick. Uh,
Here's some nacelle clean detail for you, sonny boy.
we're gonna bend
But
you to
we're
your
at
break.
war, sir. We're at war. I
Yeah,
don't care.
you're
You
gonna
get
be
out
able to
there,
read with
sonny
the
boy.
lights off. Yeah.
Just don't touch the blue glowing grill. What happens if I touch the grill? You don't want to know, son. You gotta get out there.
But let me see. And some of the other, okay, I had that, how enlisted ranks were portrayed, had a little bit on Chief O'Brien, the fact that he started off first listed as a Chief Petty Officer E7, which is already pretty decently up there. All right.
Mhm.
And then by the end of DS9, he was Senior Chief Petty Officer E8, which
Mhm.
is like, there's only one rank higher. I
Mhm.
mean, the man was getting up there. He was getting some good rank under him. I mean, the only way to go from there is either Mustang up into officer or go warrant officer.
Right. He could be
Um,
Master Chief Petty Officer of Starfleet, which it's sort of questionable what he ended up being at the end of Deep Space Nine. He definitely went over to Starfleet Academy. It was going to be teaching engineering.
oh
Um,
yeah,
but
yeah, but
but
always in those academies and stuff like that, you'll have an individual who's a high ranking, you know, enlisted. That way, you can drill some respect for the enlisted into those, stupid ass, ensign wannabes. Um, they need to learn to
think you got some
fear the
learning,
warrant
boy?
officer. Yeah,
Think
yeah.
you got some learning? I'll show you some learning.
Yes, sir. Don't call me sir. I work for a living. Yeah, I've been there. Uh,
So for the people at home, if you don't know kind of what we're talking about in flavor, if you've never seen the movie Officer and a Gentleman, you
oh,
should go
with Lou
ahead.
Gossett Jr., wasn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Go ahead and watch Officer and a Gentleman, because this fits in right in with this discussion point.
Hmm.
Um, you want to see an officer basically get talked down to by an enlisted person?
It's
Lewis
beautiful.
Gossett Jr. does a beautiful job of showing you exactly what will happen. He doesn't pull any punches. He actually portrayed it pretty well. Um, I will say that the going back to the point I was going to try and ask you was the varsity jacket.
Oh yeah.
I don't think would fly in a real naval sort of situation. I'd never heard of Navy personnel having varsity jackets at all
Well,
of
see,
any sort of stripe.
that's the thing, and that's they're trying to not just appeal to somebody of a military mindset. They're trying to appeal
Mm-hmm.
to kids who are going to be
Mm-hmm.
going to high school, and they're going to be wanting their letter jacket. So that is
Mm-hmm.
their demographic that they're shooting for, and bravo for
Right.
them. But you're absolutely right, because if you're in a military academy, you're wearing nothing but standard uniforms.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so there is no letter jacket. Yeah,
Congratulations. Here's your thing.
yeah,
It's slant.
yeah. Here,
Uh,
here's your class A's. Here's your class, yeah, here's your class C's. Here's the receipt for us taking it out of your paycheck for all of these uniforms. Oh yeah.
you want your bright and shinies, you go out there and earn those bright and shinies.
Hmm.
We don't just hand them to you. Here's your bright and shinies. No, you go
No.
out and earn your bright and shinies.
Yeah, it's not just time and grade. You actually got to earn that crap.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so one thing that we wanted to talk about was merchant marines.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to bring up merchant marines because one of the things that I wanted to bring back in is the reason that we started this whole, podcast discussion is the simple fact that we both believe that the Star Trek universe that was shown on movies and TV shows, due to budgetary constraints, just doesn't show the sheer mass of, you know, not necessarily humanity of individuals that was all under this, and all the different worlds and all the different people and all the different everything.
Mm-hmm.
And but one of the things is, for stopgap measures, is there's always the merchant marines, which is a civilian. It's like a quasi military civilian. It's almost like a reserve force,
Mm-hmm.
that can be called on in times of need. And there are several times that they have been called on in Star Trek where they brought in, let me see, civilian freighter captains like Cassidy Yates and DS9 demonstrated uh, well, I had this written out, but anyways, yeah, there were several times in Star Trek where they did rely on, basically merchant marines in order to, hold the line with the Dominion War and stuff like that. They brought in a whole bunch of civilian ships, almost like, I hesitate to say Q ships, but, you know, basically, hardened and armed civilian ships to fill in the gaps when they were low on ships. So
Mm-hmm.
there is a whole, there's a whole branch of merchant marines out there that they never really got into, and I think that's a whole nother layer on the cake that we're not seeing, and just things that they, the people who own the IP can really, go and take a look at.
I went
Let me
ahead and
see.
sent you a photo that's actually from Charlie X, which is original series episode, and they repurposed the uniforms from the cage and from Where No Man Has Gone Before, and the uniform is essentially uh, the sand-colored operations outfit with a different insignia patch, which is supposed to be the beta Greek letter. It's actually kind of the sort of undertext is that the Starfleet arrowhead is alpha, and then the Merchant Marine symbol was the beta character. So it's slightly different than the regular Starfleet insignia. Whenever you get the thing on Facebook, if you got the
Oh, is it Facebook? Okay, let me
yeah,
fire up.
if you pull up Facebook Messenger, you should be able to pull it down from there.
Okay, 1 second. Uh, and download. I have all these steps I must do.
I understand.
No worries, no worries. I'm there. I'm awesome. I am.
No arguments there.
Yeah. Well, of course not, because I'm awesome. Um, 1 second.
Sure.
Screen. There we go.
So this is Captain Ramart of the What was it? I'm trying to remember the name of the ship. It doesn't really make much difference. This is the Merchant Marine.
Oh, sorry.
No, you're fine. Of the Antares, that was it. Getting my Greek letters and my names messed up. But anyway, the USPA science vessel was also being used as a transport. USPA being United Earth Space Probe Agency. Back in the first season of Star Trek, Starfleet, the Space Fleet, and USPA, United Earth Space Probe Agency, were pretty much used almost synonymously or interchangeably. These gentlemen obviously were not regular Starfleet or Starship personnel, which you could denote by their lovely Beta insignia patch. And they're the only time you actually see in uniform Merchant Marine. Now, that's not to say there weren't other people in the Merchant Marine that weren't shown.
Did they work for Apple with those turtlenecks?
That's the original Cage and Where No Man Has Gone Before uniform. So ribbed collar for, anyway.
For her pleasure. Yeah, go ahead.
So the thing is that actually there are several people who didn't make the cut of being in Starfleet. One of them was in Bread and Circuses, who was the captain of the vessel that had visited planet 8924 or whatever it was. That was the Roman planet, if you want to think of it that way.
Oh, I remember that one with the
Magna-Roma.
TV games.
Yeah, Magna-Roma is what some fans have called it. I don't think it was ever actually addressed as Magna-Roma on the show, but in any case, if you want to see what happens when a Merchant Marine person essentially screws up, that's a good example of it.
Sure. It's because he was a Merchant Marine. All right, cool. Thanks. All right.
Well, I'm saying when they screw up. I'm not saying they do screw up. I'm saying when they do screw up. He didn't handle it well. It's like, oh well, we'll beam my crew down for Coliseum games.
Yeah,
that seems like a good shore leave option.
No, definitely. I mean, they can get some popcorn, die. But
Gladiator 5000.
Are you not entertained? Okay. But let me see here. Yeah, and that's one of the things too I wanted to bring out. Let me see. Civilian freighter captain. Okay. A system of contracted ships that would support Starfleet in the time of crisis, and that's what the Merchant Marines do now. And one of their things is to be able to help take up, the needs for logistics in a time of crisis, because what was it? What was the old saying? What was it? NCOs talk about strategy. No. NCOs talk tactics. Captains talk about strategy, and generals talk about logistics. Because it doesn't matter if you've got the best force, in the quadrant. If you can't get them there, or if when they show up, all of their photon torpedoes are expired. All right. It's often been said ever since, I think Napoleon's time, he who gets to the battlefield first wins. And you need logistics for that. You need to be able to cart the bullets and the beans and the band-aids.
Yeah.
And,
so if you can't project force, you don't have a force.
Well, yes. And, the days of, Alexander, where you can live off the land that you're conquering, those days are so far behind us. Or, with the way things are going, soon ahead of us. Sorry. No politics. No politics. Let me see. How could Starfleet interact with Merchant Marines? Federation merchants could serve as backup fleet in emergencies, similar to real-world Navy auxiliaries. Merchant convoys could have been a major element in wartime logistics. I mean,
Mhm.
having a convoy moving stuff, next to whatever, neutral zone or through a hot area. You
Mhm.
want to move those not in ships individually. You want to move those in convoys. And a merchant marine, uh, they may not be the biggest, stick in the pile, but you still you respect what they bring to the table because they can still hurt you. And there's some comfort in that. I mean, even way back in, when you're playing D&D and stuff like that, what's the first gig everybody's character gets in D&D? Caravan guard, right?
Mhm.
And you're not part of the big military, and you're not, a straight civilian. You're a caravan guard, and that's what merchant marines, one of the roles that they can fulfill. That
Mhm.
that was some thoughts that I had on that.
Well, the other thing is that merchant marine units would be one of the things that would be vital in wartime for monitoring and reporting issues. Like essentially one of the things in Errand of Mercy, which is another Star Trek original series episode when the Klingons first appear, there's a unit that's
Hmm.
addressed by Uhura, and she gives a set of call sign letters almost. And going back into looking at how uh, things are handled in the military, and it didn't really occur to me until I was reading up on it in regards to call sign usage, is that military vessels have a call sign like a radio station. So do civilian vessels. They don't necessarily make any sense to you or I because, well, we didn't assign them. But, at the same time, these call letters are essentially known. You can pull up a sheet and go, hey, well, this is
Yeah.
whatever. Um, so a civilian vessel might be off in some sector and go, hey, there's a Klingon force over here. You might want to be aware of it. Radio it out. And so that actually did happen in World War II. The British had reports of, subs being spotted in the channel or being spotted around a port or whatever. It would be radioed into Central Command, and then essentially they would go ahead and have somebody fly over and either drop stuff on it or report it and let the merchants and mariners know.
What
Go ahead.
was what was that movie with? I don't want to say Jimmy Stewart. It was Father Goose. Was the just after World War II movie that was out. It was a fun, farcical one where the guy was stranded on the island, and he was a spotter for the Navy, and
Mm-hmm.
of course he was an alcoholic because that was fun back then. And they would only let him because they had taken his rum ration and hid it all over the island, and they would only let him know where a bottle or two was when he reported something that was verified by somebody else. Then they were like, okay, go over to the bottom tree and 12 paces this way, and then go over that, and okay, and you'll have a case of rum down there. So fun with alcoholism. Welcome to the 50s.
Is
Um,
this the origin of Captain Jack Sparrow and his rum
basically,
baron?
and of course he gets stranded with a a group of um, you know high school age girls and their hot chaperone lady who they get shipwrecked because of World War II. Yeah, it's a standard you know Hollywood fare.
Mhm.
Actually, it was 1964,
So,
and
well, it was still post World War II. So, I mean, it was probably one of those things where you're reminiscing about something that happened like 20 years before.
yeah,
So, yeah, I can see that. But
and the lead was Cary Grant.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
That actually makes
Uh,
sense.
yeah, he played a good alcoholic. But yeah, so but calling in, spotter, spotting, enemy vessels and stuff like that. It's got a long and storied tradition all the way back to Cary Grant's
Mhm.
time. Uh,
And we're not. And by the way, for the folks at home, we're not condoning alcoholism. So just to be clear,
Hold on.
we're not saying
I
we're not
own a
saying
winery. I own a very small winery. I condone alcoholism.
okay. Well, he's condoning alcoholism, and
I
which
got I got into making alcohol because of my acerbic wit. Kind of drives away friends. Uh,
oh,
they don't
right.
call me asshole for nothing. Um, okay,
So
and the other thing,
what's a few bottles of Romulan ale between
I'm trying to figure out how to do a good Romulan ale kind of thing for um, just homebrew, so we could take and distribute to people and have fun with. Nothing actually from the winery, just something of my own concoction. And what I get
friends?
hung up on is it's called Romulan ale, but it's more pictured as wine or a hard alcohol. So, is it an ale or is it not an ale? I mean, if it's an ale and we want to pump up the alcohol content, we can do that. I've we can get some champagne yeast and get that stuff up to the level of schnapps, no problem. Um, which I have done accidentally before. Just I wonder what I can do with this yeast, and it came out. My wine came out at 40 proof or 42 proof, somewhere in there. It was schnapps.
42.
Yeah, it
I
was
don't
the
know.
answer. It was the answer.
There you go. Maybe that's the solution. Um,
Well,
so
alcohol is the solution. Uh,
all we need to do now is there's a company that makes Star Trek. I think it's Star Trek wines or whatever.
oh
Anyway, they
yeah.
actually produce the Romulan ale bottle. So you just need an empty Romulan ale bottle, and have it.
Well, if we go traditional,
Uh,
it's all supposed to be bootlegged in anyway. So we'll put it
uh-huh.
in whatever we can put it in, so it's hidden from the authorities. I'm thinking old cologne bottles, but that's just me.
You've got this bottle right here. It says turpentine. I think that'll be fine. Put it in.
Well,
I don't see what the problem would be. It's
if I
still
create
drinkable.
if I create it correctly, it will be able to strip off shellac just like turpentine does. So, there is that. Um,
It has a slight burden flavor as it goes down.
Now, before we wind up here, I thought that we would just quickly touch on the civilians in Star Trek and actually use that as as a cliffhanger of what we can talk about next time. Because one of the things I was thinking about as I was pulling together some thoughts on this was, you had your the civilians who are mostly just colonists and rogue scientists and stuff like that. It was only on Enterprise on the D on the Galaxy class that you saw civilians living on the starship, and that was quickly gotten rid of. Um, it was only on the Galaxy class that they really showed that. It was never on the Nebula class or the Defiance or anything like that. It was just Galaxy. Um, and so they were colonists and scientists and traders and and on the space stations you would see them on DS9. But one of the things that my brain started going down the tube on is like, okay, so in Voyager you had Seven of Nine, all right, and her parents were rogue scientists who wanted to study the Borg, so they just hopped in their local starship, all right, just the starship they had out back, and headed off to go study these Borg, which means they had to go to a whole nother. I mean, they traveled, all right, and so they weren't just hopping in, some warp 2 freighter, all right. They had something that had some legs on it, and so that led me to the whole thought that there has to be an entire in market of civilian ships and aftermarket military hardware that's been stripped down and just all kinds of stuff out there that not necessarily every Joe Blow could get. You're not going to get it for the price of my little Chevy or something like that. I mean, it's going to be along the lines of, if you've got the means or you got a good loan or something like that, you can get yourself, a an airplane or a jet. All right, civilians can purchase those. They're just expensive, and so I think when you get into it, there's going to be a whole market for that, a whole thing that hasn't been explored on people going out and just getting that kind of hardware and just we're humans. Humans go and we go do and we stick our noses where it doesn't frickin' belong, and we claim things that's not really ours. Right? Is there is there a point that
What
we're going to
happened?
have to deal with Star Trek version of colonialism? All right.
That's one of the topics that we wanted to discuss was
Yeah.
the tyranny of the nice guy.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. We're here to save you from yourself, and
yeah.
the priority of saving you is directly proportional to how much dilithium you have in your soil. Um,
We come in peace. Shoot to kill, shoot to kill, shoot to kill, man.
blood makes the
Um,
grass grow. Kill, kill, kill.
yeah.
So yeah, that's something that we could talk about next time. And yeah, I just wanted to talk about um, privately owned starships, or as I call them, POSs, POSS. You have like a POV, privately owned vehicle. These are POSs, so privately owned starships. Um,
With a history of breaking down.
well, that's the thing too. Is if you're going out there, you're not going to have all the spares on board that
No.
that a military vessel is going to have. Nor you're probably you know I'm pretty sure that if you have a replicator on board, you
Mm-hmm.
know, it's not going to be like the military one where you can just pump anything out. You're going to have to deal with, copyrights. All right. Yeah, you want to go ahead and create this, plasma injector that you need, but you can't just print it off. It will only unlock after you send in the fundage in order to get the license to go ahead and print one off. So, even though you might have the capability there to make it, you may not have the permissions to make it. And that's
Capitalism is your friend.
you know, it's never going to go away. I mean, it's been there since the first monkey, traded, a banana for a little bit of cuddle
Mm-hmm.
time. All right.
And
They
I
don't call
learned capitalism by biting the nose of a doctor. So there you go.
what was that?
Oh, I learned capitalism by biting the nose of a doctor.
Exactly. That's important.
Yeah,
Um,
I thought
but
so.
uh,
So yeah, I mean the whole thing with humans and getting out into the world, we will have to. I mean, regardless of
well,
whether Starfleet or the military is going to be doing stuff, humans as a species and the rest of the Federation are going to still be going out and doing stuff on their own as well.
Well, but that's also something as well is all right. These civilians are going to be out there, and is when they are in what is
Mm-hmm.
officially designated as Federation space, they're going to have to be, just like nowadays. If you're out there in your boat, be it on a lake or out on the coast or something like that, if the
Mm-hmm.
coasties or the wildlife and parks pulls up in the boat, you got to have all your documentation, you got to have your emergency kit, you have to have all the stuff like that you need. And that's something as well that, there's going to be a Starfleet version of the Coasties.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that is what maybe that's what the Space Force warps into for the U.S. is interstellar coasties.
Hopefully they don't wear camos when they're expecting to be out in
No,
space.
it's going to be
'Cause,
all black with little white dots on it, so they blend in with the stars.
oh, is that what it is? Well, that makes
Yeah,
more sense.
yeah, it is. Yeah, it's
Well, I also think that civies are going to be, or civies, at least in terms of like going out into space, I think could lead to issues like I actually honestly think that if you wanted to explore how the Romulan War got started, I think that cities would be at least partially responsible for it, for pushing out into the frontier and getting into areas that got them into conflict with the Romulans. Because I don't think it was the USPA or Starfleet or whatever organization it was at the time going out and like, hey, we're exploring strange new world. I think it was some guy going, hey, Bob, there's this planet over here. I'm picking up some good mineral readings on it. Why don't we go over there and mine it? And
Yeah.
then, the next thing you know, the Romulans were like, what are
What are
you
you doing
doing?
in our neighborhood? Yeah. I mean, if you look at historical precedents, the Navajo didn't go to St. Louis to get into fights. We went into their neighborhood and we're picking fights. And
Yep.
that's the exact same thing going on there. But that's something we can talk about next time.
Yep.
Let me see. My conclusions were Star Trek often focuses on the upper ranks of Starfleet, leaving enlisted personnel and civilians unexplored, yet they form the backbone of the Federation's daily operations and economy. Enlisted crew members should make up a significant portion of Starfleet's vessel complement, yet they remain largely unseen. Characters like Chief O'Brien offer a rare but valuable glimpse into their contributions. Civilians, privately owned starships. Okay, yeah. So basically, maybe next time we can talk about civilians and the entire civilian structure of that's operating underneath or next to Starfleet, because we see Starfleet as it's often portrayed as the government, but they're not. They're not the government of the Star Trek universe.
No.
They are just an arm of the government. They are the military or navy type arm of the government. Yeah.
Agreed. I mean, Gene Roddenberry said that. I still find this funny that he describes it this way, or he described it this way, was that the Enterprise is a military vessel,
Oh yeah.
but Starfleet is semi-military. I'm like, okay, all right.
Oh yeah.
But the vessel itself is military. So I just to segue into that, the whole concept of having this divorced idea between the Starfleet being semi-military and their vessels being military vessels. You got that whole.
Well, see, that's the thing. I remember seeing it on. It was written on the wall. Tasteful graffiti, artwork actually, in one of the barracks I was in, and it. I still remember it to this day. It said, "The civilian mind cannot fathom how a Marine can caress with one hand and kill with the other." And that's exactly what you're seeing there. Is you're seeing the two different hands of Starfleet. You got the one that does all science, and we're here to help you, and we have the other ones that are hey, help sometimes comes in megawatt range. That's all we're saying.
Or as Scotty would like to say, the best diplomat is a fully armed phaser bag. So.
Oh yeah, it is, and people stop and listen. But
Is this a
anyways,
frown?
we will talk about that next week, which I believe. Hold on here. Why do you not bring up my calendar, savage? That will be craptastic. If today's the 15th. That'll be the 22nd.
Yep.
And we can delve more into that, and hopefully by that point we'll be able to stream this not on Concast but onto a more dedicated channel for this, and maybe one day we'll be able to get this up on Discord and all those other things too.
Yep.
All right. Well, thanks for watching, everybody. Like and subscribe and all that good stuff.
See you later, folks.
Oh, hold on. That one.